Let's get brutal right from the start. Most people in this world are invisible, passive, forgettable. They drift through rooms like ghosts, heard but never remembered, never stirring the surface of anyone's attention for more than a fleeting second. That's not you. You're here because deep down you already sense it. You command, you disrupt, you change the gravity of the room without apology. But maybe you haven't looked at it head on. Maybe you've played small or hid from your own shadow because it's easier to blend in than to bear the responsibility of power. You want to know if you have a dominating personality? Start here. When you speak, people react. Not because you're loud, not because you're desperate for the spotlight, but because there's something in your tone that vibrates with certainty. You know how rare that is. To meet someone who says exactly what they mean, with no extra frosting, no sugar, no need for validation. Most are addicted to being liked, to smoothing every edge, terrified that the world will judge them for daring to be exact. The dominating personality doesn't flinch at judgment. It expects it. It relishes it as proof of impact. It's not arrogance, it's gravity. You don't chase approval, you attract friction. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people resent that. They'll try to clip your wings, shame your intensity, tell you to take it down a notch, as if their comfort matters more than your truth. You've seen it from teachers, lovers, friends, even family, those sideways glances, the passive resistance, the need to box you in so their world stays predictable. Do you shrink for them, or does your presence only grow louder in the vacuum of their limitations? The ancient Stoics got this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius didn't rule by accident. He shaped the world with the sheer force of his discipline and self-mastery. Seneca, Epictetus, they weren't the favorites of their age. They made their mark by refusing to trade their vision for popularity. You don't have to be emperor to see how rare that is today. We've bred a culture that worships compliance, that teaches you to apologize for every ounce of strength, every unfiltered opinion. If you find yourself biting your tongue for the sake of peace, ask yourself, is it peace, or just your power leaking out for the comfort of lesser minds? Let's drag the mirror closer. If you walk into a room and people adjust, if the tone shifts, if conversations pause, it's not coincidence. They're calibrating to you because your energy cuts through static. Some will hate it, some will be drawn to it. The only ones unmoved are those too dull to feel anything at all. Here's the line you must face. A dominating personality isn't about being liked. It's about being undeniable. You can play small and accepted, or you can play real and be remembered, never both. Modern psychology calls this trait social dominance orientation. Not the bluster of bullies or the insecurity of the fake alpha, but the deep current of authority that comes from knowing who you are, what you want, and refusing to edit yourself down to fit someone else's fragile story. You see the patterns. The weak avoid decisions, the crowd trades independence for assurance, the average confuse passivity for virtue. You seize initiative. You push for clarity. You don't let comfort slow the conversation down to the speed of the slowest thinker. Some people will call you intimidating. Good. Better to be a storm than a fog. Intimidation is what the lazy feel in the presence of the disciplined. If your presence makes people second-guess themselves, they probably need it to be shaken. A dominating personality is a test. It dares people to show up as more than what they've been. It doesn't beg for harmony or consensus. It brings the world to its standard or leaves it behind. But domination isn't cruelty. Don't confuse sharpness with malice or directness with insensitivity. The dominating personality doesn't need to shout to be heard. It doesn't chase applause, doesn't chase anything at all. It stands, holds, radiates. That's why the manipulators, the jealous, the small-minded will always try to provoke you to react, to drag you down to their turf where drama thrives. Don't play that game. Never let the weak set the tempo. Let your silence unsettle them. Let your calm be the sword that makes noise irrelevant. Here's where the real war is fought, inside. The dominating personality is not born from circumstances or handed down by genetics. It's carved in the daily struggle with your own hesitation, your own urge to shrink, your own temptation to coast. You become impossible to ignore when you become impossible to shake, and you become impossible to shake when you stop negotiating with your fears. Domination is not about others, it's about conquering the soft spots in your own mind, the places where self-doubt whispers, "Be smaller," or "Stay safe." So pause, sit in that discomfort. Feel every place you've flinched, every moment you've swallowed your standards, every time you've let someone else's weakness decide your volume. Let the storm rage inside. This is the price of rising above the tepid bath of mediocrity. Stillness comes only after the reckoning, when you stand tall, unflinching, knowing you're not for everyone, but you are always for yourself. That's the first unfiltered sign. You don't just occupy space, you command it, and the world can either adjust or get out of the way. You carry attention in every room, not the weak, anxious kind that needs approval, but the kind that challenges the air itself. You know it when you see the shift in body language, when conversations unconsciously curve around whatever you focus on, when eyes flick to you, even if you haven't spoken a word yet. That's not luck. That's not accident. That's the raw signature of a dominating presence, and it radiates from the way you own your space, move with intention, and never signal apology for existing. How many times have you watched others shrink their ambition, shrinking their sentences, whispering their opinions like they're ashamed to think in full color? You don't make that mistake anymore. You've tasted what happens when you command the moment, how suddenly the ones who challenge you are the ones who start to explain themselves, how the ones who whisper behind backs fall silent when you look them in the eye. A dominating personality doesn't cower or dilute itself to fit. It sets the temperature and expects the world to adapt. But with this edge comes responsibility. The undisciplined turn dominance into bullying, arrogance, or chaos. The truly powerful do the opposite. They use their force to cut through confusion, to bring clarity where others are paralyzed by indecision. You don't commandeer every conversation. You listen with a predator's patience, waiting for the lie, the weakness, the hint of insecurity. That's when you move. You speak when it matters, and when you do, people know it's not noise, it's a signal that changes the direction of the room. It isn't always comfortable. People will test you, sometimes openly, sometimes with subtle defiance. They'll try to reclaim the comfort they lost when you walked in. They'll try to paint your confidence as ego, your decisiveness as insensitivity. Let them. You know that the world has always belonged to those who dare to define themselves in the face of resistance. The Stoics understood this when they spoke of being unmoved by gossip, by slander, by the shifting moods of the mob. Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it." You've internalized this truth. Rejection is a mirror, not a verdict. You're not addicted to confrontation, but you're immune to the dread of it. When someone crosses a line, you don't backtrack. You don't over-explain. You hold your gaze and let silence do the heavy lifting. In that moment, every insecure person in the room feels it. They sense you won't be guilted, won't be handled, won't be brought down by cheap tactics. The most dangerous thing about you is that you do not need the room. When you want to, you can walk away without blinking. That is the apex predator's advantage. Detachment from outcome, total presence in the moment. You reject the seduction of compromise when it means self-betrayal. You know that the world is carved by those who refuse to give up their edge, not by those who fold at the first sign of discomfort. You see the difference every day between the people who are remembered and those who are never even noticed. History was written by the disruptive, the disciplined, the ones who mastered themselves so thoroughly that the chaos of others seemed trivial by comparison. That's the legacy you're building, one moment of unflinching presence at a time. Yet you're not blind to your own darkness. Having a dominating personality means constant self-auditing. You ask yourself, am I just imposing or am I inspiring? Am I seeking truth or just crushing opposition for the thrill? The ancient philosophers didn't preach a mindless confidence. They demanded self-mastery, virtue as a weapon, not bluster. You hold yourself to the same standard, refusing the easy high of unearned authority. You earn your shadow day by day, battle by battle, never letting laziness corrode your impact. The people who matter, those with vision, drive, and integrity, will recognize this in you. They'll meet your standard or they'll raise it. The ones who can't will fall away, and you'll let them without resentment or regret. That's stillness, real power that doesn't need to chase, only to stand. The storm of others' expectations, judgments, envy will pass, and what remains is the foundation of dominance. The knowledge that you can weather any challenge because you have already defeated the weaknesses inside yourself. That is what makes you truly unforgettable. You begin to notice how your very presence tests the stories others tell themselves. Some will instinctively align with your energy, trying to match your directness, borrowing your confidence just to survive the intensity you bring to the room. Others recoil, shrinking behind jokes, sarcasm, or that fluttering, nervous chatter meant to distract from their discomfort. You can almost smell their anxiety, but you don't soften to make them feel at home. That would be a betrayal of everything you've built. If anything, you lean in further, unafraid to amplify the discomfort, because you know, pressure reveals character and exposes pretense. People will say you're intimidating, that you're too much. Let them. You know that accusation is just the shield of the unprepared, the untrained, the unwilling. The world is saturated with people who want safety over truth, who choose politeness over clarity, who would rather resent you in silence than declare their own desires openly. You move through these crowds with clean, unapologetic lines. You never apologize for being awake. There's a violence to your honesty, a sharpness in your feedback, and it's not accidental. You refuse to indulge weakness, especially in yourself. When you see mediocrity spreading, when you witness groupthink suffocating ambition, you pierce it with the kind of questions that make people sweat. Why are we doing this? Who benefits if we all stay silent? What are you really afraid of? You don't ask to make people uncomfortable. You ask because someone has to break the spell. Most of the world lives in a trance, and your refusal to comply is a wake-up call. You're not reckless, you're surgical. When you challenge, it's not to create chaos, but to force focus. There's a difference. Your presence cuts through distraction. In a noisy world where everyone is performing for attention, you're the one who never raises your voice, yet commands the most focus. When you enter a room, people assess themselves, often unconsciously. They wonder if their lie will survive your attention. They wonder if their act will be exposed before they even get to finish the script. It's not that you're without compassion. You understand fear. What you reject is giving it the driver's seat. You have trained your mind, like the Stoics, to treat emotion as information, not as a master. When panic rises around you, you recall the wisdom of Epictetus. It's not events that disturb people, it's their judgments about them. You let others be disturbed if they must. Your only job is to remain unmoved until the truth surfaces. In conflict, you don't personalize. You don't seek to crush or embarrass, because that would be ego, not dominance. True dominance is strategic. You know when to let someone save face, when to step back and let others believe they've won, when to absorb a hit to win a larger campaign. Power is not proving you're right, it's pulling everyone, including opponents, closer to the real issue and refusing to abandon it until clarity is achieved. That's why your arguments win and your decisions stick, not because you shout, but because you refuse to withdraw before the truth is wrung out of every moment. After the heat of confrontation, you return to stillness. You analyze, asking yourself what could have been clearer, what insecurity you felt, what strengths you displayed, what new weaknesses you found. You're never done learning. Most people are exhausted by honesty and seek relief in distraction. You're energized by it. You seek new storms to enter, new rooms to test, not because you are restless, but because you are relentless in the pursuit of what is real. That is the mark of someone with a truly dominating presence. They do not rest on their reputation. They expand it day by day, with every challenge accepted and every comfort refused. You grow attuned to the subtle dance of power in every conversation. While others fill the air with nervous words or shrink from eye contact, you hold your posture steady and your silence strong. You've learned that the real contest isn't always fought with words. Often it's the unspoken tension, the watchful pause, the refusal to flinch first. You don't waste energy trying to fill uncomfortable gaps. When others buckle or babble, you let the silence hang, because you know that's when people reveal themselves, their motives, their insecurities, their true place in the hierarchy. Those with a dominating personality can read the room without effort. You catch the hidden glances, the lowered heads, the shuffling feet when responsibility lands. When the air grows thick with indecision, you cut through it not for control's sake, but because you can't tolerate stagnation. You know how corrosive hesitation is. The longer a group avoids a decision, the more mediocrity seeps in. You are allergic to mediocrity. It makes your skin crawl to see people shrink when they could expand, to watch energy get sucked into the black hole of consensus seeking and fake harmony. Sometimes you'll see the resistance before you even speak. The arms fold, the faces stiffen, the subtle challenge flickers in their eyes. They're bracing themselves, prepping to push back or run. It doesn't matter. You don't escalate to meet their anxiety, you stay anchored, forcing others to recalibrate. They may gossip later, complain you're too direct or too cold, but deep down they know your standard is real. You're the mirror that exposes their hesitation and denial. It's not cruelty, it's gravity. But there's always the danger of swinging too hard. The undisciplined, dominating personality becomes a tyrant, a hammer that sees every problem as a nail. Not you. You study yourself as rigorously as you study others. After a win or a loss, you ask the hard questions. Did I create clarity or just noise? Was I decisive or dismissive? Did I build strength in the room or just extract all the power for myself? The Stoics would say that a true leader dominates himself before he ever seeks to influence others. You invoke that discipline every single day. You grow to love adversity. The average person avoids challenge, but you chase it. Adversity is a forge, burning away the excess until only the essential remains. In every confrontation, every high-stakes moment, you feel yourself sharpen. There is a thrill in uncertainty, a hunger for the test. And when the storm passes, you don't boast or gloat. You reflect. You recalibrate, storing every lesson like ammunition for the next war. Nothing is wasted, not even your mistakes. You begin to sense the difference between dominance that inspires and dominance that oppresses. Those you truly respect are the ones who step up after being challenged, who rise higher under pressure rather than quitting or imploding. You seek these people out, preferring one worthy adversary to a legion of yes men. Iron sharpens iron, and you have no time for anything less. After every storm, there's always that moment of peace. You sit back, breathe deeper, and take stock. What changed? Who improved? Where did you grow harder, sharper, clearer? These are the only measures that matter. The world will always churn, resist, and try to pull you back into the grey comfort of the crowd. But you are built to cut through it, not just to dominate rooms, but to electrify them, to demand a higher standard of everyone lucky enough to stand in your presence. You notice how the world starts to organize itself around your standards. It's subtle at first. Someone defers to you in a decision. A conversation naturally flows in your direction. People hold back their true opinions until you've spoken. This isn't about ego or needing to be first. It's about the magnetic force of certainty in a world addicted to hesitation. The timid wait to see which way the wind blows before they move. You, on the other hand, are the weather, the storm front, the pressure change. You don't wait for consensus, you create it. People begin to adjust themselves around your rhythms. When you challenge assumptions, the lazy feel exposed. When you ask direct questions, the fabricators grow nervous. You can detect the scent of bluff and bluster before a word is even uttered. Years of self-honesty have made you allergic to any kind of fraud, especially your own. When someone tries to posture, you meet them with stillness or a single surgical comment that strips the excess away. No one can keep up the act for long when you're present, because you've spent too long burning the lies out of yourself to tolerate them in others. There's a respect that comes from this, sometimes openly stated, sometimes only visible in the way people make way for you, echo your points, or come to you for judgment when something truly matters. But respect isn't admiration. Some will resent you for what you provoke in them. They'll whisper, avoid, even try to undermine you. But all of that is just more evidence of your impact. You'd rather be the catalyst that people remember than the background they forget. With this kind of personality, you set boundaries like steel. There is no negotiating over what matters most to you, your integrity, your vision, your respect for time and truth. When someone tries to push against those lines, you don't get defensive. You don't explode or over-explain. You simply enforce, and the world learns each time that you mean exactly what you say. The Stoics warned against being blown about like dust in the wind. Seneca said, "Most powerful is he who has himself in his own power." You know this is the root of every external influence you wield. If you can't rule yourself, you have no business ruling the space around you. There's an energy shift when you enter. The weak, the manipulative, the uncertain, they feel it. Some bristle, some fade, a rare few are inspired to grow. You have no use for followers or flatterers. You want peers, people who meet your intensity, who challenge you without resentment, who don't wilt when things get real. You'd rather stand alone in your strength than be surrounded by the compliant and the comfort addicted. This way of being is lonely at times. There are days when your mind aches for easier waters, when it would be pleasant to drift just for an hour and not feel the prodding need to hold yourself and everyone else to the highest standard. But then you remember what mediocrity costs: your peace, your pride, your purpose. Domination isn't about conquest. It's about refusing to let life flatten you into another unremarkable echo in the crowd. So you pause in that stillness after the intensity. You listen to the silence that follows a challenge well met, a standard well defended. That's the place where your next layer of strength forms. It never ends, and you would never want it to. Because this is how legacies are built: in the relentless practice of presence, in the refusal to tolerate the average, in the discipline that shapes destiny one uncompromising moment at a time. As this relentless cycle continues, you realize every interaction is an arena. The old version of you might have ducked for cover when the stakes rose or when criticism crept in, but now you move forward, eyes wide, seeing the field for what it is. The world is a series of contests, some loud and obvious, others so subtle only the observant catch them. In each, you operate with the understanding that every word, gesture, and silence can either claim ground or surrender it. You sense the games beneath the games. When someone flatters you, it's not a compliment but a probe. When they push back, it's not just disagreement, it's a test of your will. Every time you choose not to fold, every time your voice slices through the fog of indecision, you become the reference point. The conversation may keep moving, but it revolves around the gravitational pull of your standards, your discipline, your clarity. There's a strange paradox here. The more dominant you become, the less you have to exert effort. Your habits of directness and truth-telling are so ingrained, your default presence so unwavering, that people anticipate your reactions before you even speak. Some shape up in your presence, trying to prove they belong. Others drift away, unable to match your pace or depth. You never chase, never beg. You know that the only thing worse than walking alone is being stifled by the needy, the deceptive, and the half-awake. Still, you never confuse dominance with infallibility. In fact, you hunt your own blind spots. After every victory, and especially after every setback, you get forensic with your analysis. Did you misread the room? Did you move too soon or not soon enough? Were your standards clear, or were you feeding your ego? This relentless feedback loop, this refusal to let pride insulate you, is what makes you more than just forceful, it makes you formidable. You notice your effect on others, and you wield it with intention, not recklessness. There's a responsibility in this kind of power. You can use it to bully, to crush, to silence. Or you can use it to lift, to clarify, to demand everyone step into their own strength. The world already has enough tyrants and performers. You become something sharper and rarer, a catalyst who leaves no one the same after encountering you, even if they never admit it. Some will accuse you of being cold, but you know that's a lazy misread of calm. You feel deeply, but you refuse to let emotion dictate what only discipline should decide. You've stared down your own chaos too many times to be rattled by the chaos of others. You keep your promises not because you crave a reputation, but because discipline is your only form of self-respect that matters. The Stoics said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." You embody it, not as a performance, but as your native state. Every so often you seek the storm to remind yourself what you're made of. You volunteer for discomfort, for challenge, for the opportunity to sharpen your resolve against fresh adversity. Growth, you've found, is the only incentive that never loses its power. The world spins around the same old dramas, the same old fears. You move forward, molding each moment in your image, rewriting what's possible for yourself and everyone watching, whether they love you or despise you. In the calm after each battle, you absorb the lesson. You let the silence cool your fire, refine your intent, and prepare you for the next test. The room, the world, every so-called rival, they don't stand a chance unless they're willing to rise to meet you at your fiercest. And if they are, you welcome the challenge. Because you didn't come here to dominate for the sake of ego. You came to force life to give you everything it's got, and to never let complacency steal an ounce of your strength. You discover that presence isn't just about volume or assertive words. It's about the energy that comes from absolute congruence between belief and action. There's a reason room's quiet when you enter, why even those who disagree fall silent and wait. They're not reacting to noise, they're responding to the frequency of someone who cannot be rattled by outside chaos, because every battle with their own weakness has already been fought and won in private. There's an unspoken contract you carry with yourself. Never betray your core for convenience. You can sense almost intuitively when others are negotiating away their truth to avoid friction. You remember what that felt like, how exhausting, how hollow. Now you would rather risk loneliness than ever feel that internal shame again. Every relationship you maintain, every alliance you form is filtered through this lens. If someone demands you shrink or put on a mask, you leave the mask or the connection on the table and walk away. Your time, your integrity, your mind are too valuable to permit parasites or cowards. This kind of self-mastery radiates and collects attention, but it also attracts resistance. The crowd by nature distrusts what it cannot control or label. You'll be dismissed, criticized, even attacked by those whose only power is in conformity. But you see through the performance, every critic is telling you more about their own limitations than about yours. When you face opposition, you don't react impulsively. You pause, analyze, and dissect the real game behind the game. The Stoics called this seeing things as they are, stripping away interpretation, self-pity, or drama until only the raw data remains. Your dominance is not for sale. You're not trying to seduce with charm or manipulate with flattery. You set the terms. You walk with the evidence of your discipline, your standards, your willingness to be disliked. Those with shallow vision think dominance means domination over others, crushing dissent, barking orders, hogging the stage. But the truth is more elemental. The strongest person in the room is always the one who can walk away at any moment, who never lets fear of exile bend their will. Freedom is your real superpower. You hold space for the truth, even when it's ugly. You ask questions nobody wants to answer. You refuse to let mediocrity pass unchallenged, even in the small talk, the casual plans, the daily grind. Your presence is a promise. Anyone who stands with you will be pushed, tested, sharpened. Weakness will be exposed, but strength will be honored. This is not cruelty, it's the highest form of respect. You know that everyone harbors untapped power, and it's your role to demand they meet it or move aside. After the tension, there's always a release. You don't live in perpetual conflict. You seek the stillness that comes from knowing you stood firm, never sold out, never diluted your soul for applause or affection. In that quiet you reflect, recalibrate, and start again. The world is relentless, and so are you. dominate not because you must, but because anything less is an insult to the standard that saved you from a life of invisibility. You wake up tomorrow ready to throw down with your own excuses, to take another room, another challenge, another inch of territory from the average and the timid. The cycle is infinite because greatness is not an end state, but a discipline, a storm to be weathered, a silence to be earned every single day. You begin to realize that your standards, once seen as rigid or too much, are now lifelines for others. People gravitate toward your certainty, sensing that in a world addicted to the comfort of gray areas, you are one of the rare few willing to be black and white when it matters. They seek your counsel when stakes are high, trust your word when rumors fly, follow your lead when crisis hits. You don't beg for this attention. It's the unspoken tax the world pays to those who are unbreakable. When you speak, you don't clutter your message with fillers or apologies. There's a ruthless economy to your words. Every syllable serves a purpose. This clarity is disruptive. It unsettles those who want to hide behind ambiguity and consensus. The dominating personality isn't afraid of pointing out the elephant in the room, isn't ashamed to name the weakness, isn't embarrassed to demand more. Others may flinch, may even resent you for it, but deep down they hunger for that level of truth in their own lives. The real battleground is always inside. You monitor your own motives with the same surgical sharpness you apply to others. Are you speaking to clarify or to control? Are you demanding high standards because you want everyone to win or because you fear looking weak? You know power turns to poison the moment you stop auditing your own heart. History is littered with leaders who conquered others but lost themselves. You have learned from philosophy, from pain, from psychology that the most dangerous enemy is always the internal one. You watch as people who once called you too intense or impossible return, drawn back when life finally demands seriousness. Their eyes are different now. They don't want entertainment or comfort, they want your edge, your discipline, your refusal to compromise when it's easier to give in. You don't gloat. You remember what it was like to be addicted to the easy path, to negotiate your worth for cheap approval. It only makes you more ruthless with your own growth. The Stoics taught that each person has an inner citadel, a place the world cannot touch, a fortress built from discipline, self-awareness, and accepting reality without illusion. You've built yours brick by brick, each one mortared with moments where you said no to comfort, yes to friction. When storms come, you retreat to that fortress, not to hide, but to reflect, to relearn, to come out sharper and steadier than before. The world will test your boundaries endlessly. Every day, someone somewhere will ask you to lower your voice, soften your truth, shrink your goals to make them feel bigger. You don't oblige. There is nothing noble about self-erasure. You know that every time you compromise for comfort, you teach your mind to forget its power. The discipline is never just about keeping others in check, it's about never betraying yourself. After the intensity, you allow yourself to rest in the silence, not as a retreat, but as a recalibration. Stillness is not the absence of motion, it's the gathering of strength for the next demand. You sit with discomfort, with loneliness, with the endless hunger to ascend, and you learn to savor it. This is what puts you in a league that few ever touch. The refusal to be tamed by the shifting moods of the world and the quiet, steady joy of having chosen this path for yourself. There's a moment, sometimes daily, when you encounter the temptation to regress. The urge to smooth the rough edges, to blend in, to feign humility so others don't project their insecurity onto you. You feel the old reflex, the desire to keep the peace, to avoid the heavy sighs and subtle rebukes that come from simply holding your ground. But now you treat that urge as a test, not an order. You let it rise and burn away, another weakness exposed, another link in the chain broken. Every arena you enter, a workplace, a social circle, a family dinner, becomes a laboratory for truth. You no longer hide your hunger for growth, your refusal to linger in mediocrity, your intolerance of stale thinking. You're not cruel, but you won't water yourself down for people addicted to comfort. You know what it cost you to escape that prison, and you will never pay that toll again. People sometimes accuse you of being too serious, but you see their laughter for what it is, a shield against their own cowardice. You're not afraid to be the one who breaks the spell, who asks, "Why are we pretending this is enough?" Or, "Why are we rewarding the bare minimum?" The dominating personality isn't a tyrant, it's a catalyst. You won't force anyone to rise, but you damn well won't apologize for making them uncomfortable when they choose to stay small. The psychological battle never ends, but you relish it. You've become a connoisseur of discomfort, a collector of the kind of friction that turns soft minds to steel. When anxiety bites, you lean in, studying its message. When envy stirs, you use the data. What does this feeling tell you about what you really want, about where you still shrink or defer? Every emotion, even the dark ones, becomes a tool for clarity and self-dominance. You now see clearly that domination is not about conquest, but expansion. Your presence doesn't shrink the room. It challenges everyone to expand into the space you create. Some will, and you'll respect them for it. Most won't, and you'll move on without regret or resentment. This is not loneliness, it's self-selection. You are done recruiting passengers for a journey only the relentless can survive. There is a serenity to this, an unexpected peace in having nothing left to negotiate. You understand what Seneca meant when he wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." You crave the proof, the test. You know your worst day, faced head-on with discipline, is more satisfying than 100 easy days spent shrinking for the comfort of others. And in the quiet, after every challenge, every confrontation, every moment of refusing to play small, you feel a calm descend, a stillness that doesn't come from the absence of conflict, but from the knowledge that you showed up, unfiltered, undiluted, and unbreakable. The room bends, the world adapts, and you remain. The dominant force, the standard, the storm, and the silence combined. You stop wasting time on shallow pursuits or empty gestures. There's no thrill in being seen, only in being significant. The more you master yourself, the less you care about superficial impressions. You don't show up to impress, you show up to influence, to demand movement, whether in thought, in action, in standards. You recognize how rare it is for anyone to actually stand for something, to hold a line and make it visible. Most speak in vague terms, hedging bets, afraid to fully declare a stance for fear of being disliked or proven wrong. But you're past all that. You'd rather be blunt, rather risk collision than dissolve into the endless background noise of the agreeable. This is what separates a dominating personality from the crowd. Your willingness to lose comfort, to upset the static, for the sake of something sharper, realer, and worthwhile. You see people look at you with that mixture of wariness and awe, unsure if they want to step closer or retreat to safer company. You let them decide. You never shrink to be more palatable. The Stoics taught, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." You hold that in your chest. You don't surrender your truth for votes or applause. You feel a certain weight to your presence, a pressure that tests every space you enter. Sometimes you use it deliberately, pausing, heightening the discomfort, making it impossible for cowardice or denial to hide. It's not cruelty, it's a kind of honesty most have never encountered. You refuse to coddle egos or enable weakness. When someone steps into their own strength in your presence, you respect it. When they wilt, you don't rescue or judge, you simply move forward, as if gravity has no patience for stagnation. You're not immune to pain, setbacks, or regret. What sets you apart is how you process them. You refuse to let emotion become justification for self-betrayal. Every disappointment is turned over in your mind, not for pity, but for data. What pattern failed? Where did you compromise? How will you attack it differently when it returns? Your self-talk is unforgiving, but never cruel. You dissect, adapt, and move always forward, always toward a standard higher than yesterday's. People sometimes mistake your calm for coldness or your confidence for arrogance. Let them. You've learned that being misunderstood is the inevitable tax on living at full strength. You'd rather be called intense, even abrasive, than soothing and forgettable. Your reputation is built on impact, not likability. When the world is in chaos, when comfort leads others to stagnation, you are the one people turn to. Not always with gratitude, sometimes with resentment, but always with recognition that your presence is different, an antidote to the average, a provocation to the powerful. In the moments of stillness, you measure your life by the rooms you've changed, the standards you've raised, and the echoes of your words in the minds of those still wrestling with their own denial. You don't crave peace at any price, you crave the peace earned by living relentlessly, by dominating the only territory that ever truly mattered, yourself. There's a hidden truth that only those with a dominating personality recognize. Every room, every relationship, every moment is a measure of stamina. While others tire, shift, lose focus and fold, you maintain your intensity without deviation. This isn't just perseverance, it's a fundamental refusal to let external forces dictate your internal state. You've learned that most people break not because they lack skill or intelligence, but because they lack the raw endurance to hold their line when pressure mounts. You watch as others start strong but fade. They make bold statements, then backtrack when challenged. They set boundaries, then apologize when enforcing them feels uncomfortable. They declare values, then abandon them when living them costs too much. This pattern of retreat is so common that it's practically invisible, but not to you. You've trained yourself to spot the exact moment someone's resolve begins to crack. Sometimes it's a slight change in posture, a qualifying phrase, a nervous laugh, or an unnecessary explanation. These are all signals of inner surrender, and they tell you everything about who will still be standing when the dust settles. The dominating personality doesn't dominate through force, but through consistency. When you say something matters, it matters tomorrow, next week, next year. When you set a standard, you hold it even when no one is watching, even when it would be easier to bend. This unwavering quality creates a gravity around you that others can feel but rarely understand. They sense on some primal level that you are unmoved by the currents that sweep them away. You've noticed that in any group, in any dynamic, there are those who speak and those who are heard. The difference isn't volume or charm, it's substance. When you speak, there's weight behind your words because they're backed by something increasingly rare, conviction. Not the shallow, performative kind that changes with the audience, but the bone-deep certainty that comes from having wrestled with yourself in the dark and emerged with clarity. The Stoics understood this when they spoke of living in accordance with nature, not following impulse, but aligning with deeper truths that stand the test of time and pressure. There's a cost to this way of being. You will be called rigid when you're actually principled. You'll be called intense when you're simply focused. You'll be called difficult when you're merely unwilling to compromise what matters. Let those labels come. They are the desperate attempts of the weak to make sense of strength they cannot embody. These criticisms aren't meant to correct you. They're meant to contain you, to make your power more manageable for those who fear it. The psychological reality is that most people are terrified of their own potential. They sabotage themselves before they ever risk true victory or painful defeat. They bargain with mediocrity, telling themselves that good enough is wisdom rather than surrender. But you've seen through that lie. You know that every time you accept less than what you're capable of, you train your mind to expect less. You've broken that cycle. You demand more first from yourself, then from the world. In the silence after conflict, after standing firm, after refusing to fold, there is a deep satisfaction that no external reward can match. It's the knowledge that you didn't betray yourself, that regardless of outcome you remained intact. This is the stillness at your core, the eye of the storm that others can sense but rarely achieve. It's what makes you both magnetic and intimidating. It's what makes your presence a challenge and a test for everyone who encounters it. And tomorrow, you'll wake up and do it again. You'll face the same resistance, the same temptation to soften, the same silent pressure to join the comfortable majority. And once again, you'll refuse. Because domination isn't something you do, it's something you are. Not through chance or birth, but through the relentless daily choice to live without compromise, without excuse, and without fear of standing alone. At this point, you no longer mistake exhaustion for weakness or solitude for failure. You understand that choosing this path means carrying burdens most people cannot even see, responsibility for your impact, for your shadow, for the way your intensity stirs the complacent and challenges the comfortable. The world is quick to call you too much because it has trained itself to shrink in the face of real standards, real presence. You wear that accusation as proof that you're walking the line that others only daydream about. You sense the subtle recalibration that happens when you enter a room. It isn't that people fear you, they fear what they might have to face in themselves if they let your energy set the tone. Some will try to compete, to rattle your calm, to chip away at your focus. Others will unconsciously defer, looking for your approval before forming their opinions. You never weaponize this influence, but you don't apologize for it either. You let the dynamic play out, knowing that only those with their own backbone will hold their ground. That's the only company you want anyway. You pay close attention to your own impulses, constantly checking whether you're using dominance as a shield or as a tool. You don't crush resistance just to prove you can. You invite worthy conflict because you know iron sharpens iron. The best adversaries push you to new heights. The rest push you to deeper discipline. The ancient philosophers knew that power without virtue is emptiness, noise without substance. You invoke that wisdom. Every time you stand fast, you're not performing for the crowd. You're reaffirming your own values, your own code. The world doesn't reward this level of clarity with comfort. In fact, the more you grow, the more you realize comfort is a false prize, a temptation to soften your standards, to go along for the sake of short-term ease. It's a currency for those who have nothing greater to pursue. You, on the other hand, are fueled by what discomfort refines in you: the grit to withstand being misunderstood, the patience to outlast resistance, the pride in holding a line even when it means standing alone. You're not immune to longing. There are times when you wish it could be easier, that the world would meet you halfway. But then you remember, every moment you've bent in the past, every time you shrank out of fear or guilt, it only made you smaller. It never brought the peace you were after. Now you'd rather be restless and true than peaceful and false. The loneliness you sometimes feel is the gatekeeper to a deeper tribe, one made up of those who have chosen the same uphill battle, who have earned their scars and wouldn't trade a single one for the numb drifting of the crowd. You rest, then rise again. There's a rhythm to this life: challenge, clarity, stillness, and the next test waiting around the bend. With each cycle, your core hardens, your focus sharpens, and your confidence grows quieter and more absolute. You are no longer performing. You are no longer convincing. You simply are, and that is the kind of dominance that needs no explanation, no defense, and no permission. You start to understand that domination is not a single act, but a reputation forged in repetition. Every day you enforce your standards, you're building a record the world cannot ignore. When your name is mentioned, people don't just recall your words, they recall how you made them feel: pushed, exposed, challenged to step up or step aside. This is not about being feared, it's about being unmistakably felt. The invisible become visible the moment you refuse to retreat. You see how easily the masses fold beneath pressure, how quickly their ideas crumble when confronted, how readily their values evaporate under the scrutiny of someone who actually lives by theirs. You don't need to threaten or bluster. Your mere refusal to conform is enough to tilt the balance of power in any setting. Insecure people will try to make your intensity the problem. They'll say you need to relax, that you're taking things too seriously. But you know, seriousness is the lifeblood of achievement, the only antidote to mediocrity. You're not chasing validation. In fact, you've become almost immune to praise. You know how empty it is when given out of habit, how easily it becomes a leash. You track only your own approval. Did you hold the line? Did you speak the truth? Did you resist the urge to explain yourself to people who neither understand nor deserve it? That's what matters. Reputation is built on consistency, self-respect, and the courage to endure being misunderstood. Your influence evolves. Where once you may have craved attention, now you attract gravity. People sense that when things matter, when discipline is in short supply, you are the one who can absorb the pressure, make the call, lead in crisis. This isn't natural talent. It's earned through repetition, the hundreds of times you've refused to betray your own standards for the sake of fitting in. But you are also vigilant about your own darkness, the temptation to dominate out of insecurity, to silence dissent for convenience, to use power as a mask for unaddressed fear. You know that real authority requires perpetual self-examination. You hunt your ego like a wolf stalks prey. You invite feedback from the rare few you respect, always seeking refinement, always preferring criticism that strengthens over praise that weakens. The world will keep testing you. The more you win, the more it throws at you bigger doubters, sharper critics, stronger rivals. Welcome it. The Stoics looked for resistance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Obstacles are not interruptions, they are invitations to rise. So you end each day not drained, but reforged. You store every test, every battle, every lonely moment as fuel. The stillness that follows is deeper now, a knowing, unshakable center. You do not crave the storm, but when it comes, you are ready, not because you wish to conquer others, but because you refuse, now and always, to ever let the world conquer you. With repetition, your influence becomes legacy. You're no longer just dominating moments. You're setting a standard that persists long after you've left the room. People talk differently when your name comes up. They measure themselves against the memory of your clarity and the echo of your expectations. You become the absent presence, the example unspoken, but always felt, the challenge that lingers, sharpening the minds of those who once resented and now quietly admire you. You notice how easily the world bows to the unspoken rules of the weak. Mediocrity is normalized, discomfort is avoided, and ambition is often mocked as arrogance. But you reject all of it. Your life is now a living rebuke to every excuse, every small betrayal of self, every masked plea for permission to stay the same. You walk into new arenas unconcerned with consensus, eyes forward, heart resolute. Your questions cut through the fog. Your decisions set the tempo. If others flinch at the standard, you let them. No one is pulled upward by coddling. This attitude spills into every aspect of your life. In work, you refuse shortcuts and hold yourself and your team accountable to an ethic that seems almost alien in a world of corner cutters. In relationships, you prize depth and loyalty above charm and convenience. You don't waste time managing perceptions or massaging egos. If there's conflict, you address it. If there's disloyalty, you sever it. You don't do drama, and you don't tolerate it from others. Sometimes you encounter those who surprise you, the rare few with their own internal discipline, their own stubborn refusal to fold. You spot them immediately. There's a mutual recognition, a respect that doesn't require endless testing. These are the only people you call peer. Everyone else is a student, an adversary, or an afterthought. Your circle is small but unbreakable, forged as much by shared battles as by shared victories. You realize, too, that most people want what you have, but almost none are willing to pay the price. They want strength without sacrifice, presence without pain, dominance without discipline. You become the living proof that these things are always linked. Every standard, every boundary, every lonely night spent holding on to your vision, it all compounds into a power that cannot be stolen, only earned. With this comes a deep, resonant peace. You no longer wrestle with guilt for being different, for demanding more, for refusing to blend in. The world's judgments are just weather, sometimes loud, sometimes cold, but never lasting. Your true home is the fortress you've built inside the silence that follows every storm, the steady echo of your own unbroken word. This is where you realize the ultimate secret. Domination never really was about others. It was always about mastery over yourself. The external victories are just reflections of the internal wars you've won. The calm and the storm, each one, a testament, each one, a promise that you will continue, no matter who joins you, no matter who falls away. Now you move through life with a clarity that can't be faked or bought. You spot the games instantly, the petty power moves, the pedestal building and sabotage, the performative respect that evaporates the moment your back is turned. You're immune to it, not because you've stopped caring, but because your priorities have evolved beyond the need for approval or cheap alliance. You don't play those games, you bend the field simply by refusing to enter it. Your discipline is both shield and sword. You start each day with intention, sharpening your thoughts before anyone else's expectations can dull them. No alarm, no routine, no demand from the world is stronger than the contract you've made with yourself. You built that contract through the daily grind of saying no to comfort, yes to hardship, and never outsourcing your validation to the crowd. This edge is why you don't fear solitude and why you're impervious to the loneliness that breaks others. Where they feel emptiness, you feel sovereignty. The world is obsessed with shortcuts, with faking presence, with hacking charisma, with getting the effect without the cause. But you're not chasing effect, you are the cause. You walk into a room and without a word, people straighten up. They watch what you'll acknowledge, what you'll ignore, who you'll engage, and who you'll dismiss. Even those who claim not to care are attentive to your temperature, your attention, your refusal to settle for noise. In every interaction, you're a verdict, an unspoken challenge for people to rise or retreat. You see others buckle at the first sign of friction. They rush to explain, to justify, to apologize for their own existence. You don't. You speak only when there's something worth saying, hold your silence like a weapon, and let discomfort do the work most are too soft to attempt. If someone wants something from you, respect, access, time, they must bring something equal in return. Truth, effort, the willingness to face your standard and not flinch. This is not arrogance, it is dignity. It is the rarest currency and the hardest to counterfeit. Through all this, you remain a student of your own shadow. You don't let pride calcify into blindness. After every encounter, every confrontation, you run an audit. Did you hold your standard, or did ego creep in? Did you dominate for value or for vanity? Did you build, or did you only break? The Stoics taught that only the examined life is free. You live that discipline, refusing to let a single victory dull your hunger for better. When the day's trials are over and the world goes quiet, you're left with the only voice that matters. There's peace here, a certainty that comes not from perfection, but from never surrendering to the easy route. You rest easy, not because you bent for comfort, but because you forced the world to meet you at your fiercest, and you didn't fold. The storm comes and goes, but your standard remains unmoved, unmovable. Every now and then, you catch yourself in a rare, fleeting moment of ease when the world seems to slow, when people's eyes are cast elsewhere and the air is quiet. This is where most would relax, let their discipline slip, maybe even reach for old comforts. But you know that these moments are the forge. When nobody's watching, when there's no pressure to perform, that's when character is truly tempered or corroded. You refuse to let your guard down, not in a paranoid way, but as a tribute to the self-mastery you've built. The world bends only for those who stay vigilant in the silence. People may whisper that you're obsessed, that you never let things go, that you're always intense. Let them. They're giving voice to their own discomfort at your refusal to fade. You'd rather be accused of obsession than regret ever letting mediocrity soak into your bones again. Your so-called intensity is just the absence of compromise. Your obsession is nothing more than the refusal to surrender to the standards of the average. Every time you hold steady while others fold, your edge grows sharper, your presence heavier. You become a filter for the world around you. The opportunists, the drama seekers, the self-pitying, they start to fall away. You don't need to banish them. Your clarity is exile enough. It reveals the gap between their words and actions, their desires and their discipline. The only people left are those willing to match or challenge your standard. That's the highest form of respect, to be surrounded not by a crowd, but by a brotherhood of equals, each one forged by friction, not flattery. Sometimes you wonder if the solitude is worth it. The answer comes in every crisis, every hard conversation, every test that would have broken your old self. You're unshaken. When others wait for rescue or retreat into complaint, you move. When chaos erupts, you're the calm at the center, not because you're emotionless, but because your emotions serve your discipline, not the reverse. The difference is visible. The world confuses this stillness with magic or luck, but it's just the predictable result of relentless inner work. You don't chase legacy for its own sake, but you know you're building one. Each day you spend refusing to betray yourself is compounded in the minds of everyone who watches, even your critics. They may never admit it, but you're the presence they measure themselves against. You're the example they whisper about in private, the one they resent in the light, but try to imitate in the dark. You carry this knowledge quietly, without arrogance or apology. When you falter, and you do, sometimes you don't spiral. You audit, you adjust, you attack again. Failure is data, not destiny. Shame is a signal, not a sentence. You carry mistakes like weights, not wounds. Each one makes you stronger, not slower. The Stoics would nod in approval. What harms the mind strengthens the mind if you refuse to run from it. You end each day not with relief, but with a hunger for tomorrow's test. You know the world will always throw new storms, new doubters, new challenges. And you welcome it because domination is a discipline, not an event. The only thing that matters is whether you stood tall, held your line, and made your presence the defining force in every room you entered. That, above all, is the legacy you build, 1 hour, 1 room, 1 uncompromising choice at a time. You notice that the higher you climb, the fewer people can truly understand, let alone appreciate, the discipline it takes to sustain this presence day after day. The masses see only the visible. The stillness in the crisis, the command in your voice, the way you walk into a meeting or enter a negotiation, and the atmosphere thickens. They mistake it for luck, for talent, for some unteachable charisma. What they never see, because they would never dare endure it, is the invisible cost. The hours spent in brutal self-reflection, the countless times you chose discomfort over conformity, and the nights you sat alone, auditing your weaknesses and refusing to let self-pity take root. Every arena, every relationship, every venture demands a new level of domination. Not over others, but always first over yourself. You have become your own harshest critic, your own fiercest opponent. You sit in the stillness at the end of a long day, not to rest but to interrogate your performance. Where did you pull punches? Where did you let fatigue masquerade as wisdom? Where did you settle when you know you could have pressed harder, dug deeper, demanded more? The world prizes self-esteem, endless affirmation, and the myth of easy progress, but you are built on something older and sharper. The daily willingness to die to the weakest version of yourself and be reborn sharper and more relentless with every sunrise. You are no longer surprised by the resistance you face, you expect it. In fact, you've grown to crave it. Weak men and women will flinch at your presence, attempt to undermine you with gossip, try to sabotage with passive aggression, or merely vanish into the background where they cannot be measured. Others, sensing your discipline, will seek to test themselves against you. You recognize this and welcome it. You know every challenger, every rival, is a mirror, one that reflects not only your strengths, but the edges that must be honed. The Stoics wrote about amor fati, the love of one's fate. You embody this. Adversity isn't tragedy, it's fuel. Your relationships are shaped by this gravity. The self-deceivers, the codependent, the chronic excuse makers, they cannot survive in your orbit for long. There's too much pressure, too much risk of exposure. In the end, only those who live by their own standards, who welcome the friction of real challenge, remain by your side. You don't romanticize loneliness, you harness it. It sharpens your discernment, deepens your focus, forces you to build companionship on shared values, not on empty comfort or flattery. Every day you see more clearly how the crowd operates. They chase external validation, thinking that applause, likes, or compliments will fill the gnawing void inside. But for you, validation is internal, a simple question at the end of each day. Did you keep your word to yourself? Did you stand as an example even when nobody was looking, even when it cost you approval, ease, or short-term gain? That is the only metric that matters. And so you move with purpose. You're done wasting energy on empty arguments, on trying to convert those who don't want to be rescued from their own denial. Instead, you focus on legacy. What changes after you leave the room? What standard remains after your departure? You are ruthless not to others, but to the mediocrity that tries to infiltrate your efforts. The moment you sense complacency, you declare war on it. When you spot entitlement in yourself, when you catch the voice that says, "You've earned a break, a shortcut, a compromise," you answer it with action, not negotiation. You take the harder path because ease is the enemy of excellence, and you have too much respect for your own potential to live in the land of good enough. Emotion is part of the game, but never your master. The world will always be noisy, crisis will come, tempers will flare, people will hurl their fears at you and do everything in their power to destabilize your intent. You do not take this personally. You let anger pass through you, you let praise die in the silence of your resolve. You live by what remains after all the voices fade: discipline, mission, clarity. Resentment and regret are for those who never risk discomfort. You know that the hard conversations, the tough calls, the lonely stands, these are the signs of a life lived at full power. Success becomes a byproduct, not a goal. When you dominate yourself, when you own your presence, every room and every outcome is secondary. You understand what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Control is never external first. It cannot be won by force or brashness. It is the quiet law you write across your own mind every day with every uncompromising action. The rare few who meet you at your level, who see what's really happening beneath the surface, become co-conspirators in mastery. You sense each other the way wolves sense equals: a nod, a glance, a silent mutual recognition. There's no need for boasting or elaborate display. Power knows power. There is respect, sometimes rivalry, always accountability. You challenge each other, refuse to allow comfort to creep in, and test your standards in the heat of every interaction. These are the only relationships worth keeping, those that demand your best, not your compliance. And then, after every battle, every negotiation, every quiet refusal to bend, you return to stillness. You face yourself in the mirror and see every victory, every scar, every hard-won inch. You own every mistake. You hold yourself to account. No room for excuses, no space for fantasy, only the clear truth of a day lived with intention, or a day lost to the tides of weakness. You decide which side you're on every single morning. That is the path. That is the difference. And it is yours now for as long as you dare to hold it. The discipline becomes automatic, habit layered on habit, until every action and reaction serves your larger end. While others are ruled by mood and circumstance, you are guided by your internal compass, a North Star hammered into place by 1,000 days of holding firm when it would have been easier to slip. You are not immune to setback or self-doubt. You simply refuse to let them dictate your next move. When you stumble, you do not dwell or dramatize. You dissect, you learn, you get up harder than you fell. You understand what most will never grasp. Reputation is only the echo of discipline. You know people are watching, appraising, waiting for you to falter or to be human in the sense they understand, weak, apologetic, self-betraying. But you've outgrown the need to explain your ways or justify your standards to those who've never dared to set their own. Every choice whispers your priorities. Every sacrifice is a declaration that you refuse to rot among the ranks of the unremarkable. You see how the world operates on convenience. People make plans and abandon them. They make promises and break them. They talk about goals as if speaking them aloud is the same as living them with blood and bone. You, however, have become immune to wishful thinking. You don't talk about what you will do. You do it, and you let the results speak the only language that matters: undeniable evidence. As the Stoics taught, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. This way of being infects every part of your life, not as a persona, but as a law. In meetings, your words cut through posturing. In negotiations, your patience is the sharpest weapon. The longer you wait, the more those used to shallow games and quick wins unravel themselves. You can't be rushed, manipulated, or lured into false urgency. When opportunities come, you do not leap blindly or let fear of missing out dictate your choices. You weigh, you measure, and when you move, it is with the force and finality of a decision already lived out 1,000 times in your mind. You know well the price you pay for this clarity. Some doors remain closed because those behind them fear what you represent, a standard that makes their excuses impossible to ignore. Some relationships wither, unable to withstand the glare of your uncompromising honesty. There is loneliness here, yes, but it is the loneliness of the mountaintop, the air too rare for most, the view afforded only to those who climbed. There is a silent satisfaction that comes with enduring. Every time you say no to distraction, every time you walk away from comfort, every time you speak the truth instead of what is easy or expected, your foundation deepens. The world is noisy, but the stillness at your core is undisturbed. You carry inner weather that no storm can touch. People start to test you differently. They stop trying to see if you'll break. Instead, they begin to watch for what you'll build. The same critics who once called you harsh now ask for your counsel in crisis. The same doubters who whispered about your obsession now mirror your routines, desperate to taste the dignity that comes from living without compromise. You welcome none of it and are distracted by none of it. Attention, recognition, envy, these are wind. You stand and the world arranges itself accordingly. There's a paradox in this kind of dominance. The more you live by your own code, the less you have to prove it. Your presence is an answer, not a question. Your routine up before the excuses, back at your task when others quit. Never negotiating your standards for a moment's pleasure becomes an example that does its work in silence. You find that you need less and less from others. You demand more and more from yourself. Over time, the line between inner and outer mastery blurs. You stop compartmentalizing ambition and discipline into work and life. The same clarity you bring to your mission shapes every decision, shapes how you treat your body, your mind, your resources. There's no such thing as a small choice. Every detail adds up. Every action is a vote for the identity you are building. You bring this scrutiny to everything and everyone, friends, partners, clients, enemies. The standard is not up for debate. Yet you do not lose compassion. You remember what it was to live small, to crave approval and bargain away your potential for an easier day. But you refuse to enable that in others. If they want to stand with you, they must grow. You will not lower yourself to pull them up. You do not cut people down, but you do let them fall away if they refuse to rise. This isn't malice, this is nature. The Stoics found peace in accepting what they cannot control and power in mastering what they can. You are the living proof. In the rare, quiet moments before dawn, after the grind, when your mind is sharpest and the world is nowhere to be found, you feel the magnitude of your journey. There's no parade, no applause, just the honest weight of a life lived at capacity. You rest in that stillness, not as a retreat, but as a gathering of force for what comes next. Because this storm never truly ends, and neither does your resolve. In the spaces between your actions, you reflect and sharpen. You no longer fear the silence after the storm, in fact, you seek it. That's where you hear the echoes of your choices, the proof of your discipline resonating in the stillness. The average person dreads these moments, restless without the noise of external validation or distraction. But you use them as a forge, melting away the impurities that threaten to dull your edge. In that finite hush, you face the questions most try to silence. Did I stand firm when it counted? Did I let fear pilot my words, or did I speak straight through the static? Did I raise the standard, or did I slip beneath it, even for a moment? You know now that the world is always watching. It may not be with open eyes or honest admiration, but the collective mind takes note of those who do not break, who do not bend at every gust of adversity. You're no longer surprised when the ones who once mocked your intensity return seeking your counsel, your leadership, your stability. They wear sheepish masks, never quite admitting what they truly crave. the rare strength to be unmoved. You realize that most people are desperate for a leader, a reference point, an anchor in the tide of indecision and self-deceit. They don't want to be dominated, but they crave the certainty that domination radiates. They want to borrow your clarity, your refusal to shrink, your calm in chaos. Because when you walk in conviction, you make hard decisions seem simple and heavy burdens seem light. You never asked for this role, but you earned it. Your example is a beacon, and you bear its weight with silent pride. You no longer fight for every inch of attention. Now people gravitate to you. Gravity is effortless when it comes from a core of solid intent. You can sense which ones are ready to be sharpened and which will drain your energy with their endless explanations and unresolved drama. You don't waste a second trying to persuade the unwilling. Time is your ultimate resource, and your new discipline is to spend it only where it multiplies. This level of self-mastery creates a peculiar kind of solitude. You're surrounded by people, yet rarely feel truly seen. You share victories, yet the wars you wage are internal, witnessed only by your own mind. There are moments you wish the world could understand the cost that comes with the presence they envy. But then you remember, nothing given freely is ever respected. The loneliness, the misunderstanding, the endless tests, these are the toll you pay to never return to the prison of compromise. Old friends, old habits, even old dreams may fall away. You grieve this, not because you have grown cold, but because you refuse to lie to yourself about where you belong. Nostalgia is a chain that pulls the average back just when they're about to break free. You honor your past, but your allegiance is to the unfinished future, a future shaped again and again by the discipline of now. Your very manner disrupts the status quo. In a meeting, your quiet confidence silences the noise. Your refusal to gossip or flatter unnerves those who thrive on social currency. Your ability to say no without anger, without justification, with nothing but calm certainty commands a respect that no title or threat could manufacture. Where others seek attention, you command it through absence, through restraint, through the unshakable vibe that you are only ever half present, already focused on the next play, the next test. Through every encounter, you build an inner portfolio of lessons. You track your own weaknesses as closely as you scan for them in others. When you slip, you don't rush to rationalize or excuse. You own it and you fix it. The bar moves up again. Those who cannot keep pace recede into background noise, unfit for the company of someone who treats every day as a proving ground. There are rewards, yes, but they are not the kind sold by self-help gurus or motivational speakers. Your reward is the chill in your chest after standing alone through a tough call. The pride in your reflection, knowing you chose the harder right over the easier wrong. The ripple of respect you see but do not chase in the eyes of those who once doubted you. This is a satisfaction no applause, no paycheck, no superficial conquest can touch. You move through the world like a storm contained in a vessel, energy held, never spent recklessly, prepared to unleash only when it matters most. Your discipline is not a mask but your truest face. The more you live this way, the more you understand. Dominance is not something you take. It is something you become, forged in solitude, fired in adversity, measured not by the world's standards, but by the unwavering echo of your own. The storm will rise again, as it always does. You'll be ready, as you always are. Every room is a microcosm of the world's power games, and you move through each one with awareness sharpened by years of self-confrontation. You sense the social calculations before they're spoken, the hidden alliances, the subtle rivalries, the shifting postures of those who posture with one face and plan with another. You know who waits for someone strong to follow. You know who decays into petty sabotage when their insecurity is triggered. You've seen it all, and you waste no energy playing along. Your advantage is in your selective engagement. You don't bother with every challenge, only those that are worthy. The crowd still tries in their way to drag you back down. They bait you with mockery or veiled criticism, hoping you'll join their dance of distraction, but you don't. You've grown past the need to prove yourself to the unimpressive. A single look, a pause, your refusal to respond at all, these are now your sharpest tools. You communicate volumes with silence because everyone's watching for your reaction. Your absence in pointless conversations, your calm detachment during drama, becomes a new kind of presence. Even saying nothing, you are unmistakably there, shaping the air. The ones who thrive in your orbit do so because they recognize what you're about. They want the friction, they want the test. They want to feel themselves grow sharper, stronger, more alert in your company. The weak resent the discomfort. The worthy expand within it. This is why your circle is so small and your influence so disproportionate. You would rather sharpen one iron mind than entertain 100 lukewarm souls. You invest where greatness is possible, and you let the rest walk or wilt. You become immune to the manipulations that govern the average. Guilt trips, peer pressure, veiled threats, they fall away, useless against someone whose compass is internal and immutable. When others try their tricks, you see the root, their wishes, their wounds, their powerlessness. You might address it if it serves your purpose, but more often you let it pass. Most games do not deserve your time. Yet you are not unkind. You do not crush people for sport or escalate needlessly for ego. The ancient Stoics taught compassion without weakness, the strength to speak the truth, the clarity to walk away, the discipline to never use your powers for petty victories. Your standard is high because you want others to discover their own. The test is not about humiliation, it's about awakening. Those who respond with candor and courage become invaluable allies. Those who shrink or attack, you leave behind without hesitation or regret. In the aftermath of each confrontation, you do not gloat or linger. Reflection comes first. What revealed itself? Where did you grow, and where did you hesitate? Every storm is a lesson, every hard conversation another rep in the gym of the mind. You bank these insights, you crave the feedback. Where you were once brittle and defensive, you are now fluid and adaptive. Your core never changes, but your tactics get sharper. You gain the ability to step into any arena, read the pulse, and know within moments what must be done, what must be questioned, and what must be left to rot. Your reputation precedes you, not because you advertise it, but because people feel the difference when you're near. You set the tempo, raise the energy, introduce the discomfort that makes the room real. And when you leave, the echo remains a challenge to the brave, a warning to the weak, a standard that lingers in every hushed conversation afterward. This is the storm you bring, and equally the stillness you leave behind. There's a consequence to walking this path. You become a measuring stick for others, a living reminder of what's possible when comfort is rejected and standards are enforced. Sometimes you sense the resentment, even hatred, from those who realize in your presence just how much they've compromised. Their laughter is a defense mechanism, their gossip an attempt to downgrade your standard so they can feel less guilty about their own inertia. You don't take it personally. You know that most people defend their mediocrity with more passion than they've ever brought to any ambition. Your ability to dominate comes not from the need to control others, but from the refusal to abandon yourself. You live every day with the tension that comes from never being satisfied. You don't see this as a flaw. You see it as your greatest asset. Hunger is uncomfortable, true, but it's the only thing that keeps you from sinking into the quicksand of good enough. You wear your ambition on your sleeve, and you make no apologies for it. While the weak disguise their true desires in sarcasm or cynicism, you state yours openly and pursue them relentlessly. The Stoics taught that indifference to external things is a virtue, but so is fierceness in pursuit of internal goals. People start treating your presence as a litmus test. Before they approach, they measure their own integrity, knowing you will spot falsehood in a second. They check their excuses, their stories, even their ambitions, wondering which will survive exposure to your clarity. They may not always like you, but they cannot ignore you. This is the gravity of the dominating soul. You force reality onto every dynamic, turning collective denial into confrontation, stagnation into action. When you walk into a negotiation, a meeting, or a conflict, you scan for the strong and the sincere. You give them your best, knowing they'll return it. With the rest, you don't waste a syllable more than necessary. Your time is a statement. How you spend it reveals your values louder than any speech could. You don't flatter, you don't barter, you don't play for empty points. You only compete where the outcome is worthy and the opponent honorable. Still, there are moments of reflection, even loneliness. You question your edges, perhaps you went too far, perhaps your intensity was a hammer when a scalpel was needed. You study yourself relentlessly, never allowing dominance to decay into tyranny or self-assurance into blindness. This constant self-auditing is the true cost of power. You are both king and court, judge and defendant, every night in the silence where no audience remains. And with each cycle, the gap between you and the crowd widens. You recognize that you don't belong everywhere, nor should you try to. The world needs storms and calm, but your gift is to bring the storm where it's needed, to challenge the systems and souls that have fallen asleep behind walls of comfort. You accept the isolation, the misunderstanding, even the envy, as the price for refusing to desert yourself. The dignity you feel in the aftermath cannot be purchased, only earned by enduring the discomfort most will spend a lifetime fleeing. So you show up again and again, living proof that dominance is born not in conquering others, but in conquering the urge to disappear. The world may not always remember your face, but it will never forget the feeling it had when you walked in the electric discomfort, the rush of possibility, the sudden clarity in the air. That's the legacy the dominating leave. Not just changed circumstances, but changed minds, changed spines, changed fates. And that legacy is worth every test, every exile, every storm. Eventually you stop seeing resistance as something to fight and start seeing it as a vital form of feedback. When people recoil, push back, or even attempt to undermine you, it's rarely about you, it's about their own boundaries being tested and their comfort zones challenged. You've become fluent in this emotional dialect. Instead of reacting or retaliating, you observe and diagnose. Are they worth your time? Can they grow, or will they retreat into complaint and self-pity? Your discernment becomes razor-sharp. The storm you bring is not indiscriminate. It's focused, reserved for the places and people where something real can be forged. In every room, your mere presence shatters the equilibrium. The lazy become agitated, the weak become defensive, but the ambitious lean forward. You see it in their eyes, the hunger, the resentment, the longing to be more. Some try to compete, hoping to unseat you or prove their own worth. You never take the bait. You recognize that the true measure of dominance is not how loudly you can silence others, but how quietly you force them to stand up straighter or finally confront the truth they've hidden from themselves. Your standards become contagious. When you hold fast, others either rise or fade. You don't preach, you demonstrate. When you demand the best from yourself in public and private, you give the world permission to do the same. Your peers, your team, sometimes even your adversaries begin to feel the pressure to upgrade or get left behind. This is influence at its purest, the unseen pull of example, not the empty push of command. But you also know the cost. The wisdom of the ancients is never far from your mind. Unchecked power corrupts, and pride walks hand in hand with downfall. So you audit your motives constantly. Am I dominating because it's needed or just because I can? Am I speaking to add clarity or am I just seeking applause? When you find ego lurking, you cut it out with the same precision you use on others. Self-mastery breeds humility. You're not afraid to admit fault or recalibrate. The storm makes you stronger only because you refuse to become its captive. Day after day, you meet new pushback, new misunderstanding, new attempts to reduce you to something more manageable. You greet them all with the same unyielding calm. There is no need to rail against the world or beg for comprehension. You know yourself, you know your intent, you know your limits and your power alike. That unshakable self-awareness is the quietest and loudest form of dominance. The world comes to respect it. Even your harshest critics eventually recognize that your presence is not random. It's the cumulative result of thousands of decisions, each one made in defiance of fear, laziness, and the desire to fit in. What feels like a storm to others is your natural climate. You wake up expecting resistance, even needing it. Without friction, there is no fire, no growth, no meaning. Comfort is death, and you are addicted to life. And so the cycle repeats. New rooms, new faces, new challenges. Each time you test yourself anew, did you maintain your standard? Did you listen as fiercely as you led? Did you leave the room stronger than you found it? When you fall short, you use it. When you succeed, you leave no footprints, just a higher bar for everyone who follows. This is how domination turns to legacy, and how the world, storm by storm, is changed by the force of one uncompromising life. There are days when it feels as though the weight of the world is pressing down on you, suffocating your spirit and draining your energy. Moments when the stress, the suffering, and the heaviness of life seem endless, trapping you in a cycle of despair. But know this, those days never last. Beyond every storm, there is always a clearing. Beyond every hardship, there is always another opportunity waiting. Storms come and storms go. Good times come and good times go. Life moves in cycles of difficulty and joy, and it will always be so. The situation you find yourself in today, whether it brings joy or sorrow, will not stay the same. Change is the law of life. The most crucial thing you can do is to stay in motion, to align yourself with the very nature of the universe, which is ever flowing, ever moving. As long as you stay in rhythm with life's movement, with discipline, conviction, and consistency, good things will find you. You will overcome the challenges you face today and the ones that await tomorrow. Motion fueled by discipline and perseverance becomes an unstoppable force. By maintaining forward momentum and a mindset rooted in resilience, you will break through barriers and rise to new heights. This is not mere hope. It is the law of the universe and the core of human nature. Where there is will, there is always a way. The most ambitious, consistent, and relentless individuals, those who refuse to quit, who do not waste time complaining, are the ones who change their lives, reach their goals, and shape their destinies. In the chapters ahead, we will unlock powerful, timeless wisdom to help you cultivate a mindset that remains unbreakable, no matter what life brings. Keep going. You've got this. Chapter 1. The nature of endurance. To understand why we must keep going, we must first understand the nature of endurance. The Stoics believed that endurance was not merely about waiting out the storm, but standing tall within it. Seneca taught that true greatness is not avoiding hardship, but facing it bravely, treating every difficulty as an opportunity to forge strength. Imagine the ancient mariner battling waves larger than ship. He does not command the sea to calm. He commands himself to stay steady. Life mirrors this ocean. You cannot order the tides to obey your wishes, but you can train your mind to hold firm amid the thrashing training. Endurance is a daily exercise, a craft honed through countless small, deliberate actions woven into the fabric of everyday life. It begins with simple but profound choices, resisting the urge to complain when things do not go your way, staying silent and composed when anger bubbles up inside, choosing patience in the very moments when frustration tempts you to lash out or give up. Each decision, seemingly insignificant on its own, lays another solid stone in the enduring foundation of a resilient character. Over time, these small victories build up, creating an internal fortress against the storms of life. You may not notice the strength you are building day by day, hidden quietly beneath the surface of your daily struggles and small victories. But one day, perhaps when you least expect it, when a fierce trial comes, you will find yourself standing firm, unwavering. Without even realizing how deeply rooted your endurance has become, you will marvel at your own unshakable foundation. One that was formed not by grand moments, but by thousands of small, unseen choices to persist. This quiet, continuous construction of resilience is not glamorous. It is not celebrated or recognized by crowds. It is silent, steadfast, and deeply personal. Yet it is transformational beyond measure. It molds you into a being capable of weathering life's most violent storms without losing your course. True fortitude is the cumulative result of countless moments, often lonely, often painful, where you chose to endure, to stay steady, and to persist even when every fiber of your being screamed for escape, ease, or surrender. It is the fruit of your unseen battles, the product of your determined spirit, choosing growth over comfort, steadfastness over surrender, and courage over collapse. Every day that you continue forward, you are adding another vital piece to the indestructible structure of your character. Begin by identifying the small irritations that disturb your peace. Every time you endure one without complaint, you strengthen your endurance muscle. Log these moments over time, you will see proof of your growing power. Chapter 2: Discipline is Freedom. Many view discipline as confinement, something cold and rigid, but the Stoics knew it as true liberation. A liberation far deeper and more profound than the fleeting pleasures of indulgence or the hollow victories of unchecked desires. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This mastery is not external conquest, but internal dominion. Freedom is not merely doing whatever you feel like doing. It is having the unshakable strength to do what must be done, even when every fiber of your being rebels against it. True freedom is the ability to act with reason and virtue, not with whim and impulse. The one who rules over his appetites, moods, and distractions is the one who moves freely and purposefully toward his highest goals. Unshaken by the chaotic winds of circumstance and unaffected by the noise of temporary discomforts. When you lose yourself to impulses, you surrender your sovereignty. You become a puppet of circumstance, dancing to the erratic tunes of fleeting emotions and transient cravings. But when you tether yourself to your values, to principles that do not sway with the day's weather, you become truly unstoppable. You carve out a life of intention rather than accident, of purpose rather than passivity. Discipline becomes the invisible armor that guards your dreams. From the subtle enemies of laziness, fear, and distraction, it becomes the steady engine that powers your mission forward, no matter how rough the terrain becomes. No matter how heavy the burden grows, no matter how loud the voices of doubt and fatigue shout within you. Think of a sculptor chiseling away at a massive, stubborn block of marble. Without disciplined, patient strokes, the sculpture remains hidden forever within the stone, an invisible masterpiece trapped inside because the hand that wielded the chisel lacked the will to continue. Only the persistent, precise movements of the sculptor reveal the form that already exists inside, waiting to be uncovered in the same way. Discipline reveals the masterpiece within you by stripping away layers of weakness, fear, doubt, hesitation, and regret. It unveils your truest form, a form that would otherwise remain buried beneath years of procrastination, excuse-making, and indulgence. Discipline is not about becoming someone else. It is about uncovering the powerful, courageous, wise person. You are always meant to be every disciplined choice to rise early, when sleep tempts you to speak with unwavering integrity, when lies could offer you ease to persist in your labor, when quitting would be the softer path to face fears, when retreat seems more appealing to act with courage, when silence would be safer to take action, when procrastination whispers for delay. Is another strike of the chisel, another patient and deliberate movement closer to the powerful, free individual you are destined to become. Each of these seemingly small acts forms a chain of resilience, binding you ever closer to the person you are meant to be. Every moment of resistance against comfort is a thread woven into the fabric of your character, strengthening it strand by strand, weaving a tapestry of endurance and determination that no outside force can easily tear apart. It is through this relentless, patient, and intentional effort, often invisible to the outside world, but monumental within, that you shape not only your destiny, but also your very essence. The unseen battles, the quiet victories over temptation, the moments when you choose principle over ease, these are the crucibles where greatness is forged. The journey of disciplined living is not paved with grand gestures or dramatic moments of valor, but with thousands of small, courageous choices made in obscurity. Choices that reflect your deepest values rather than your fleeting emotions. It is the consistency of these choices, stitched day after day, thread after thread, that ultimately crafts a life of remarkable strength, profound depth, and unbreakable integrity. Every moment of discipline, no matter how small, no matter how overlooked by the world, is a decisive victory over the weaker self that seeks comfort, distraction, and momentary pleasure at the expense of enduring greatness. These tiny victories, seemingly insignificant in the moment, compound over time, forming an unbreakable chain of resilience that cannot easily be shattered. They are the unsung triumphs that shape your destiny in ways that grand gestures rarely do. Each time you choose the harder right over the easier wrong. Each time you resist the call of temporary ease in favor of long-term excellence, you inch closer to the towering potential that lies dormant within you, awaiting only your continued effort to be fully awakened. You build a self that can withstand the tests of life, not merely survive them, but greet them with a calm, steady determination. You forge an inner constitution that does not falter when the winds of adversity howl, that does not crumble when faced with unexpected hardships. Instead, you create a mind and soul that remains steadfast and true, like a deeply rooted oak tree that weathers countless storms, yet stands ever taller after each one passes. When comfort calls loudly to abandon the path, you will not be swayed, because your discipline has taught you to value purpose over pleasure, meaning over mediocrity. These cumulative victories, stitched together through deliberate and consistent action, one determined choice at a time, construct a spirit that can weather any storm, pursue any dream, and ultimately achieve a life of profound meaning, joy, and fulfillment. They weave a tapestry of strength so tightly bound that even the fiercest storms cannot tear it apart. Over time, these small but mighty choices build an internal world so solid that adversity cannot easily shake it. You become a lighthouse amid the wildest seas, standing tall, a beacon of resilience and determination for yourself and those around you. It is a life where you are the true master of your fate, not because fate treated you gently, not because fortune favored you without condition, but because you met every challenge, both expected and unforeseen, with an indomitable will that refused to yield. You earned your sovereignty through battle, through fire, through countless silent moments when giving up would have been easier, but going forward became your only choice. This kind of mastery is not granted. It has forged a life where your story is not one of easy victories handed to you without struggle, but a living testament to relentless perseverance, tireless striving, and the quiet, powerful dignity that only the disciplined truly know. It is a life where your every achievement is written in the ink of resilience, and your every triumph echoes with the strength born of countless internal battles fought and won when no one was watching. It is a dignity that comes not from public applause, fleeting praise, or the hollow validation of others, but from the private, profound knowledge that you chose integrity over ease, determination over defeat, and purpose over comfort, not just once but repeatedly when it would have been far simpler to yield. You will carry that dignity quietly, like a flame sheltered in the storm, steady, unwavering, and brilliant. In its simplicity, this flame will not demand recognition, nor will it seek external validation to confirm its worth. It will simply shine a silent testament to your internal victories. In a world that often rewards noise and spectacle, your light will be different. It will be the quiet glow of authenticity, the kind that cannot be faked, bought, or imitated. It will draw the respect of those who recognize real strength and inspire those still searching for their own. In every action, every word, every quiet choice to persist, you will embody a kind of greatness that cannot be taken away because it was never given. It was built with your own hands day by day through your unwavering commitment to the disciplined life. Set daily non-negotiables. These are actions you will complete no matter what. A morning routine, a moment of silence, an hour of focused work. Build your discipline around them and watch your freedom grow. Chapter 3: Accept and Act. Acceptance is not resignation. Acceptance is clarity, a luminous understanding that reality must be met on its terms, not on the terms of our fleeting desires or imagined preferences. Marcus Aurelius taught that we should greet each event, good or bad, as if we had chosen it ourselves. This radical form of acceptance is not about pretending that every outcome pleases us, but about recognizing that peace comes from harmony with life rather than futile resistance. By doing so, we remove the friction between life and our expectations, dissolving the self-created suffering that often compounds our challenges. When you accept what you cannot control, you liberate your energy to act on what you can. You free yourself from the shackles of wasted emotion, from the gnawing anxiety that arises when you rage against immovable realities. Resistance drains you, bleeding away your strength in battles you were never meant to win. Acceptance recharges you, restoring your focus, sharpening your will, and filling your heart with a durable serenity that cannot be shaken by every unexpected turn. This is not passive surrender, it is active alignment with reality. A warrior's discipline to adapt and engage the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. Picture a river that flows around rocks, undeterred by obstacles in its path. The river does not protest the stones. It neither laments them nor tries to force them away. It moves forward with grace and persistence, adapting its course without ever losing its essential direction. It carves valleys, nourishes lands, and reaches the sea through a patient, irresistible force. You too can embody this spirit. You can learn to flow with life's obstacles, not by surrendering your purpose or diminishing your ambitions, but by maintaining your momentum, your spirit, and your clarity. Even when the landscape shifts unpredictably around you, each challenge, each unexpected turn becomes an opportunity to reinforce your determination, to sharpen your focus, and to demonstrate your resilience. The river does not stop to curse the mountain. It carves its way through, finding new pathways, adapting without losing the essence of its journey. So must you flow forward, remaining agile, yet unwavering in your commitment to your highest aspirations. When you adopt this mindset, obstacles cease to be interruptions and become integral parts of the journey itself. Stepping stones that test and refine you, you remain loyal to your ultimate direction. Undeterred by setbacks, undefeated by delays. Every shift in the landscape, every unexpected hardship becomes a proving ground where you reaffirm your purpose and strengthen your inner resolve. By flowing instead of resisting, adapting instead of breaking, you turn adversity into an ally, a powerful current that propels you even closer to your true destination. Practice the art of voluntary acceptance at least once a day. When something frustrating occurs, pause and say, "I accept this." Then immediately take the next right action available to you. Chapter 4. Progress over perfection. The Stoics warned against the toxic pursuit of perfection, a pursuit that often binds individuals in chains of unrealistic expectations and unattainable ideals. They understood that no human being is flawless. To err is woven into the very fabric of human existence. What truly matters is steady progress, small, deliberate, continuous improvements that accumulate piece by piece into greatness over time. True excellence is not an explosion. It is a slow, patient accumulation of effort, resilience, and wisdom. Perfectionism often paralyzes the spirit. Fear of mistakes, fear of judgment, and fear of falling short lead to stagnation and inaction instead of daring greatly. The perfectionist retreats, believing that if they cannot be flawless, they should not try at all. Yet, as Epictetus wisely reminds us, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Mistakes themselves are neutral. It is our interpretation that gives them power over us. If you judge every mistake as a definitive failure, you will quit. You will shrink from challenges. But if you judge each mistake as a vital lesson, as essential material in the crafting of your character, you will endure, adapt, and evolve into someone far greater than if you had never stumbled at all. Reflect weekly on your progress, not your perfection. Ask yourself, what small improvements did I make this week? Write them down. Let these victories fuel your journey. Chapter 5. The Power of Perseverance. Perseverance is the art of beginning again every single day. No matter how many times you have fallen, faltered, or failed, It is not a singular moment of dramatic heroism, but 1,000 quiet acts of courage performed in the solitude of daily life. The Stoics lived this daily rhythm of renewal, waking each morning with the understanding that struggle is not an exception to life, but its very essence. They prepared not only for the known challenges, but also for the unforeseen hardships that life would inevitably unveil. Each new sunrise was greeted with a renewed commitment to endure, to remain steadfast, and to keep moving forward. When you feel exhausted, overwhelmed, or defeated, remember this essential truth. Perseverance is not about feeling good. It is about staying loyal to your purpose regardless of the transient waves of emotion that seek to knock you off. Coarse feelings are whether unpredictable, ever-changing beyond your control, and like storm clouds they gather and disperse without warning. But purpose is the ground beneath your feet, solid, reliable, enduring, and unmoved by the tempest raging above. When the storms of doubt, fatigue, or sorrow sweep through your mind, threatening to disorient you and obscure your path, anchor yourself firmly to that ground. Let your purpose be the steady foundation upon which you stand, the unwavering guide that directs your steps, even when visibility is low. The winds howl against you and all familiar landmarks vanish from view. Purpose, steadfast and eternal, can lead you through the darkest moments. If you trust it more than you trust the fickleness of your passing emotions, you must learn to yield without breaking, to absorb life's blows without losing your essence, to let hardship shape you, but never allow it to define you. Hardship is not a verdict on your worth. It is the furnace that tempers your spirit and strengthens the fibers of your soul. You must see life's difficulties not as personal attacks, but as necessary training grounds where your true character is revealed and refined. You must be willing to stand amid adversity, not by rigidly resisting every gust of misfortune, but by adapting your stance, bending as needed, while holding firm to your core values. The branches of a tree that bend survive the storm. The ones that resist too stubbornly are often the first to break. Adaptability is not weakness, it is strength wrapped in wisdom. Flexibility combined with unwavering commitment to your deepest principles allows you to navigate life's tempest without losing the essence of who you are. In doing so, you develop a spirit that cannot be easily toppled or torn apart. A spirit so deeply rooted in resilience that even the fiercest tempest will find it unmoved at its center. A living embodiment of quiet, enduring power in this daily choice to persist, to rise with bruised spirit and wounded heart to face the day's battles anew. Regardless of yesterday's trials, you shape a life of profound resilience, quiet strength, and unwavering determination. Every sunrise offers you a new opportunity to reaffirm your commitment to your purpose, to reforge your courage in the fires of persistence. Each day you choose not to retreat, but to advance even by a single step. You build invisible walls of inner strength that shield you from despair and doubt every moment you choose to endure, especially when your strength feels spent. When the easier path of surrender tempts you, strengthens your foundation. It deepens your roots into the fertile ground of self-trust, patience, and unshakable resolve. Through these daily acts of perseverance, you fortify your soul against all future storms and trials, creating a spirit that stands independent of circumstance, fortified against both external blows and internal doubts in time. Your very presence will inspire those around you to stand a little taller, to fight a little longer, and to remember that within them too lies an unbreakable core. This core is not given freely. It is built through the magnificent labor of facing hardship with grace, courage, and a fierce refusal to yield. Every trial you endure, every setback you overcome, and every day you rise again adds another ring to your spirit, growing you into a towering force of nature. Unyielding, unshakable, and quietly invincible. Develop a reset ritual for difficult days. When you feel like giving up, pause, breathe deeply. Reaffirm your purpose with a simple phrase like, "I am built for this." Then take the next small action, however minor it may seem. Chapter 6. Resilience is a daily practice. Resilience is not something you are born with. It is something you build painstakingly over time through deliberate choices and consistent action. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They recognized that every small act of perseverance, every moment you choose to stand firm rather than retreat in the face of adversity, is another brick laid in the fortress of your character. This fortress is not constructed overnight. It is slowly, carefully built with each courageous decision you make when confronted by life's inevitable difficulties. Each day offers dozens of chances to practice resilience if you are attentive enough to recognize them. When plans fall through unexpectedly, when criticisms sting your pride more sharply than you anticipated, when fatigue drags down your spirit and whispers temptations of surrender, these are your defining moments. These are your real training grounds, far more important than any easy victories that come without struggle. Easy victories breed complacency. It is the hard-fought battles that carve greatness into your soul. Your resilience does not grow when life is smooth, predictable, and comfortable. It grows when life demands more from you than you believe you can give. When you are stretched to the breaking point and must summon from within a strength you did not even know you had every challenge. No matter how daunting is a silent invitation to become more than you were yesterday, to forge yourself that can endure and prevail no matter what storms arise. A warrior does not wait until the moment of battle to sharpen their sword or strengthen their shield. They prepare daily with unwavering diligence, understanding that the outcome of any conflict is determined not by fleeting courage in the moment, but by countless hours of preparation beforehand. They hone their mind, their body, and their spirit through intentional, often grueling practice long before the true test comes. So must you approach each challenge, no matter how small, no matter how seemingly insignificant, as a personal lesson designed specifically for you, crafted by life itself to sharpen your resolve, to harden your will, and to temper your endurance. Every inconvenience, every setback, every disappointment contains within it a spark of potential growth. If you are wise and humble enough to see it, treat every hardship not as a burden to complain about, but as a sacred opportunity, a divine assignment placed deliberately in your path to reinforce the very architecture of your character. Understand that life in its infinite wisdom sends trials not to crush you, but to carve from you the finest version of yourself. View these trials not as nuisances to be avoided or minimized, but as essential, irreplaceable bricks in the construction of an unbreakable inner fortress. They are the hammer and chisel that sculpt the masterpiece of your being, forging within you the capacity to bear immense weight, to endure relentless hardship, and to thrive magnificently under pressure that would break the unprepared. As you embrace this mindset, not once, but consciously, repeatedly, every single day, in both major upheavals and minor inconveniences, you will find yourself developing a quiet, immovable strength that the world cannot easily perceive, but will inevitably feel. Your presence will speak. Without words, you will embody a calmness that does not waver in the face of adversity. A spirit that meets storms not with panic, but with poise, with deep wisdom, and with an unwavering resolve anchored in your soul. Over time, this practice will transform you from within, creating a depth of resilience that is unshakable, a core identity that remains steady while everything else around you trembles. Over time, with enough persistence, conscious engagement, and devoted practice, you will find yourself standing stronger, calmer, more resilient, and more unshakable than you ever thought possible. You will become the steady rock against which the waves break in vain, the unbending pillar that others instinctively turn toward in moments of fear, uncertainty, and chaos. In choosing to rise above your trials, to meet each hardship with the unflinching courage of a soul determined to grow, you will not only shape your destiny with your own hands, but you will light the way for others. You will inspire them to believe in their own capacity to endure, to prevail, and to transcend whatever storms life may bring their way, creating a ripple effect of courage and perseverance that outlasts even your own lifetime. Chapter 7: Controlling the Inner Voice. The Stoics taught that the quality of our lives depends largely on the quality of our inner dialogue. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about watching his own thoughts and correcting them when they strayed into negativity, fear, or bitterness. Your inner voice can either be your fiercest enemy or your strongest ally. It is the most persistent and influential force in shaping your emotional landscape, the unseen architect that silently constructs the foundation of your future reality left unchecked. It'll parrot every fear, doubt, and excuse that you have ever absorbed from the world around you. It'll magnify insecurities, rationalize procrastination, distort opportunities into obstacles, and plant seeds of hesitation in the very moments that demand courage and conviction. But when guided, intentionally shaped with conscious care and disciplined thought, your inner voice transforms into your greatest source of strength, clarity, and resilience. It can become the voice that fuels your ambitions, comforts you in trials, reminds you of your worth during times of failure, and reignites your determination. When all other sources have gone silent, it'll become the friend who never abandons you, the coach who pushes you toward excellence, the guide who steers you back to your higher path. Whenever you stray every day without exception, you have the sacred opportunity to coach yourself, to build a relationship with your mind that lifts you up rather than tears you down, that fortifies rather than weakens, that empowers rather than sabotages. This is not merely an abstract concept. It is a vital daily practice that determines whether you climb higher or retreat into mediocrity. Each thought you entertain is a building block, a rehearsal that prepares you either for defeat or for victory. Every internal whisper is like a seed being sown into the fertile soil of your consciousness. If you speak to yourself with cruelty, sarcasm, doubt, or fear, you unconsciously rehearse retreat before you even step onto the battlefield of life. You diminish your own strength before your journey even begins, subtly undermining your courage and eroding your will. You prepare yourself to surrender rather than to fight, forfeiting potential victories before the contest even starts. But if you speak to yourself with encouragement, with fierce honesty tempered by compassion, with unyielding belief in your capacity to overcome, you lay the groundwork for triumph, for a quiet, enduring strength that no external force can easily shake, regardless of how treacherous the path ahead may seem. Your inner dialogue becomes your most reliable armor, the shield that guards your mind against the arrows of despair. Choose your words carefully with the same deliberate tenderness you would offer to someone you love more than life itself. Every whisper you allow inside your mind matters. Every phrase you repeat internally either nurtures growth or nourishes fear. Language is not neutral. It is charged with the power to create or destroy. Be patient, because growth is not instantaneous. It requires seasons of tending, watering, enduring storms, and believing even when no visible progress seems to appear. Be firm, because standards and expectations form the very scaffolding of character, shaping the contours of who you will ultimately become. Be relentless, because the world will try ceaselessly to sway your spirit, whisper doubts into your ear, and tempt you to abandon your course in favor of easier, lesser paths. You must remain unyielding. You must be your own greatest advocate when no one else is watching, when the applause has faded, and when only your own voice remains to encourage you forward, especially with the words you speak to yourself for. They are not mere echoes in the hollow corridors of your mind. They are potent seeds deeply planted from which your entire future will either wither and decay or blossom and flourish into something magnificent, something lasting, something worthy of all your dreams and all your efforts. Practice thought audits 3 times a day. Pause and ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? If your thoughts are harmful or discouraging, replace them with stronger ones. Write powerful phrases you can draw upon when needed, like I am capable. This too shall pass, or I bend, but I do not break. Chapter 8, Obstacles are the path. Marcus Aurelius said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The obstacle is not separate from your path. It is your path. Life is not happening to you. It is happening for you to forge the strength you seek. When you see obstacles as teachers rather than threats, your entire experience of life undergoes a profound transformation, a shift so powerful that it redefines your relationship with struggle itself. Frustrations that once felt like insurmountable burdens now appear as valuable invitations, portals through which you can grow stronger, wiser, and infinitely more resilient. They become essential opportunities not just for survival, but for the refinement of your character and the deepening of your spirit. Setbacks no longer signify failure. They become the raw material, the fuel for your ascent, the very energy that propels you to higher levels of capability, wisdom, and understanding. Every challenge you encounter is secretly a carefully wrapped gift, an offering that contains within it vital lessons and latent strength. Even though it rarely comes adorned with ease or comfort, these gifts do not announce themselves with celebration. They often arrive cloaked in hardship, wrapped in frustration, and marked by moments of doubt. Yet it is precisely because they are hidden in difficulty and adversity that they possess the power to forge greatness within you. A greatness that could never be summoned in the absence of trials. A strength that remains undiscovered without the pressure and heat of life's crucible. Challenges are not diversions from your path. They are your path. They are the chisels that carve away your illusions, the fires that burn away your weaknesses. And the storms that strengthen your roots. They sculpt you with every stumble, every setback, every tear shed in silent perseverance. They shape you not into what is easy, but into what is necessary. They prepare you to hold the very blessings you seek, the ones that require a depth of character, resilience, and wisdom that only hardship can cultivate. Without these trials, your victories would be hollow, your success shallow, and your spirit untested. Embracing this truth, truly embedding it into the very marrow of your philosophy, turns life's hardships from fearsome enemies into essential, trusted allies. You stop fleeing from difficulty and instead begin to meet it head-on, understanding that every trial you face carries within it a priceless treasure meant for your growth and evolution. You learn that every obstacle, no matter how daunting, is an opportunity in disguise. It is an opportunity to refine your character, to strengthen your will, and to sharpen your resilience. Each obstacle becomes not a blockade that halts your progress, but a building block upon which you climb higher, always upwards. Each detour becomes not a delay, but a directional sign, pointing you toward a deeper purpose, a more profound understanding, and a richer destiny that you might never have discovered without the struggle. In this way, you transform every difficulty, every heartache, every moment of doubt into a stepping stone on your personal path toward mastery, fulfillment, and the quiet, enduring power that comes only from having faced life fully. You prevail not by force, not by rage, but by wisdom, patience, and an unwavering perseverance that knows the greatest victories are not won overnight or through brute strength. They are earned one difficult, deliberate step at a time, with every action taken in alignment with your higher purpose, no matter how small or unremarkable it may seem in the moment. With each step you gather strength, and with each challenge you face, you carve out a life that is more resilient, more purposeful, and more in harmony with your deepest values. Whenever an obstacle arises, immediately ask, "What is this here to teach me?" Write down your answers. Over time, this question will become second. Nature and obstacles will no longer intimidate you. They will empower you. Chapter 9: Action over Emotion. The Stoics taught that action, not emotion, should guide your life. While feelings are important, they are not reliable captains of the ship of your existence. Feelings, after all, are like the weather, changing swiftly and unpredictably with the winds of circumstance. One moment you may feel elated, and the next you may feel overwhelmed with doubt or fear. Emotions are transient and often beyond your control, but your actions need not be dictated by them. The disciplined mind understands this fundamental truth. It acknowledges emotions as they arise, but does not allow them to take control. Instead, it continues to act with clarity, integrity, and purpose. Regardless of how the emotional winds may blow, you can feel fear, sadness, anger, and still act in alignment with your principles. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the deliberate choice to act rightly despite the fear, the sadness, or the anger that may grip you. Courage is not the absence of discomfort, but the ability to move forward despite it. It is about doing what you know is right, even when the voice of fear or frustration is loud in your mind. The Stoics understood that true bravery is not about waiting for the fear to disappear, but about stepping forward and doing what needs to be done with the fear. The craftsman continues his work even on days when he feels uninspired, understanding that mastery comes not from waiting for motivation to strike, but from showing up each day and committing to the process. The athlete trains even when tired, knowing that greatness is built through repetition and persistence, not perfection. The philosopher studies even when confused, understanding that wisdom is not immediately grasped, but earned over time through patience and deliberate reflection. Success in life is not about waiting for the perfect conditions or the perfect mood. It is about showing up every single day, no matter how you feel, and doing the right thing again and again, even when the path feels difficult or discouraging. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment to take action, but creating the right moment through your consistent dedication. The discipline to continue, even when it's hard to act despite your emotional state, is what ultimately builds the life you desire. One where your efforts align with your values and your long-term goals, regardless of immediate challenges. It is the act of consistent, persistent effort, regardless of how small or seemingly insignificant it may appear in the moment, that creates lasting progress, compounds into meaningful change, and lays the foundation for future success. These small actions performed day after day may feel inconsequential in the moment, but over time they accumulate into something far greater than the sum of their parts. Each effort, each step taken with purpose, each challenge faced and conquered, no matter how small, adds to your growth, strengthens your character, and builds a future you can be proud of. It is in these quiet, often unnoticed moments that true transformation occurs, slowly and steadily behind the scenes. This is the power of persistence. This ongoing commitment to action, no matter how many obstacles, delays, or setbacks you face, is the secret to a life built not on fleeting moments of motivation, which can often feel overwhelming in their intensity, but equally short-lived, but on steady, deliberate progress. It is not the loud bursts of energy or the grand plans that sustain lasting success, but the quiet, unwavering dedication to showing up every single day, doing the right thing and making progress, even if it's just an inch at a time. Through this consistent effort, you carve out a path that leads to sustainable growth and transformation, proving that success is not about waiting for the perfect moment, but about making the most of the moment at hand, regardless of how small it may seem. Create a minimum action list, no matter how you feel. Commit to completing 3 key actions each day. These actions don't have to be monumental or extraordinary, just the essential tasks that move you toward your goals, no matter how small they may seem, even on your worst days. This list ensures you maintain forward motion, no matter how sluggish or difficult the day may feel. By making these 3 key actions non-negotiable, you build consistency and momentum, ensuring that no matter what distractions, emotions, or setbacks come your way, you stay grounded in your commitment to progress. It's about finding stability in routine and continuing to move forward, even when energy or motivation is in short supply. Chapter 10: Victory Through Persistence. Victory in life rarely belongs to the fastest, the strongest, or the most gifted. It does not belong to those who achieve greatness through a single stroke of genius or a flash of rare talent. Nor does it belong to those who seek shortcuts or wait for the perfect moment to arrive. Instead, it belongs to those who persist, those who refuse to quit even when every external sign tells them to. It belongs to those who fall yet rise again. No matter how many times they have been knocked down or how far they have fallen, it belongs to those who continue on their path, even when reason says stop, when fatigue takes over, and when doubt begins to creep in like a silent intruder. Success does not belong to the person who gets everything right on the first try. It belongs to the one who continues when it feels hardest, to the one who keeps pushing forward regardless of the odds. Victory belongs to those who understand that success is built on endurance, not on how quickly you cross the finish line, but on how consistently you show up day after day. Every great figure in history, whether a Stoic philosopher or a revolutionary thinker, knew this profound truth. They understood that persistence is the key that unlocks every door, the force that conquers every barrier. Persistence wears down resistance slowly but surely, and eventually it breaks through walls that seem impenetrable and overcomes obstacles that appear insurmountable. What once seemed impossible, even laughable, becomes inevitable through steady, unwavering effort. What once felt unreachable becomes attainable piece by piece, step by step. Every day, every action adds another brick to the foundation of your success. When you commit to persistent action, you become like a river carving through stone, slow, steady, and unstoppable. The river does not rush or force its way through the rock. It wears the rock down gently, but relentlessly over time. The river's persistence is not about brute force. It's about consistency and patience. Each drop, each current wears away at the stone until even the toughest, most resilient rock has been shaped and carved by the river's unyielding flow. This is the power of persistence. It may take time, it may feel slow, it may seem like little progress is being made, but in the end it is unstoppable. What may seem insignificant in the moment, when compounded over time, becomes the force that shapes the landscape of your life. No matter how tough today feels, no matter how heavy the burden or how slow the progress, remember your only true task is to persist when everything feels overwhelming, when the weight of the world seems unbearable, or when your progress feels like it's too small to matter. Remind yourself that each small effort is a victory in itself, no matter how trivial it may appear. Every small step forward, every ounce of energy invested, every bit of determination to keep going despite the odds. These are the very actions that over time chip away at the obstacles in your path, and ultimately they will shape your future. Even the smallest effort, when consistently applied, becomes part of the larger momentum that propels you toward your goals, and before you know it, the seemingly insurmountable hurdles you face will no longer seem so daunting. The obstacles that once towered over you, those that seemed impossible to overcome, will begin to crumble, worn down by your steady, persistent efforts. The things that once terrified or overwhelmed you will lose their power simply because you continue to face them head-on day after day. You are shaping your destiny with every action you take, with every choice you make to continue, and with each effort, no matter how small, you are carving your future into existence. In each of these small, seemingly insignificant moments of perseverance, you are creating the life you desire. In the end, your persistence will be the force that moves mountains. It will not be a single burst of energy that propels you forward, nor will it be a sudden flash of inspiration that carries you to success. Rather, it is the enduring power of your unwavering dedication to the process that truly moves you toward greatness. With time, effort, and relentless determination, nothing will be able to stand in your way. Your success will not be a matter of chance, nor will it be a fleeting result that happens once and fades. It'll be the culmination of all the small, consistent actions you have taken, and it will be the result of your tireless commitment to the journey. No matter how long, difficult, or uncertain it may seem, success is the byproduct of consistent, unwavering action. This is how dreams are, realized not through shortcuts, not through sudden bursts of brilliance or miraculous turns of fate, but through the quiet persistence of those who choose to show up every single day, who keep moving forward despite the challenges, despite the slow pace. And despite the doubts that arise, it's the cumulative effect of countless steps forward, all driven by the belief that each one brings you closer to the person and the life you are meant to create. And in the end, it's this persistence that transforms you and your world into something extraordinary. Adopt a persistence mantra, create a short phrase that embodies your commitment, such as, "I will not stop," "forward always," or "every day, every step." Repeat it. When exhaustion tempts you to quit, let it pull you back to action. The Stoics did not teach passive acceptance of life. They taught active, disciplined, relentless engagement with it. This is where the true beauty of resilience lies. It's not merely about enduring the storm, but about learning from it. Each setback is a lesson, a stepping stone that contributes to your eventual growth and enlightenment. The ability to reinterpret failure as a powerful teacher is a hallmark of those who persist. They recognize that mistakes are an inevitable part of the journey, and instead of allowing them to define their path, they use them as fuel to propel themselves forward. In this light, the act of persistence transforms from a mere necessity to a profound opportunity for evolution. It's about adopting a growth mindset that views challenges as avenues for development rather than obstacles to be avoided. The challenges you face today forge your character and resilience, shaping who you will become tomorrow. Embracing this perspective allows you to harness the power of every experience, both triumphs and failures, recognizing they collectively contribute to your narrative. While the daily grind can feel monotonous, each moment spent in dedication is an investment in your future. Develop a routine that celebrates these small victories. Keep a journal to document your journey, noting even the tiniest steps forward as they serve as reminders of your commitment and progress. Reflect on the challenges you've faced, the lessons learned, and how far you've come. This reflective practice will not only bolster your resolve, but will also reinforce the understanding that persistence breeds strength. Furthermore, encourage yourself to share your journey with others. Find accountability partners or mentors who can offer support, wisdom, and encouragement. Engaging in a community of like-minded individuals amplifies the power of your persistence. It fosters a sense of belonging and enhances the motivation to keep moving forward, even when the path is difficult. As you navigate through the complexities and challenges of life, remember that your persistence is a muscle that grows stronger with use. It thrives on routine, reinforcement, and reflection. By committing yourself to this journey with clarity and purpose, you will find that each day adds to the tapestry of your achievement, stitching together the fabric of resilience and growth that weaves into a fulfilling and meaningful life. Ultimately, the essence of success is interwoven with the simple act of continuing, of choosing to show up and engage, of nurturing your dreams with unwavering determination. No matter how daunting the task may seem, it is the compounding effect of persistent effort that illuminates the path towards your aspirations, making the once daunting climb a journey towards extraordinary heights. Embrace this journey with an open heart and a steadfast spirit, for within it lies the true essence of who you are destined to be.